people keep adding on top of just stacking up without asking a question or without going back to the drawing board and saying like, okay, what is a consumer, what is our consumer going through? What did they do it 10 years ago? What are they doing today?
Hello and welcome everyone to this all new episode of the Auto Tech Show. I'm your host, Mark Babin, and as always, it's great to have you with me for this one. Now on this episode, I'm bringing a legendary guest to help me decode the world of AI in the automotive retail space, Jay Vijayan. Jay is the founder and CEO at Techion Corp, a company focused on revolutionizing the automotive industry by building world-class cloud-based business applications. Before Techion, Jay was the chief information officer at Tesla, where he led a global team in building and scaling the company's digital platform from the ground up during Tesla's hyper-growth phase, taking it from pre-revenue to an annual revenue run rate of over $5 billion with a market cap of over $35 billion. Incredible. With a rich background that also includes leadership roles at VMware and Oracle, Jay brings a wealth of experience in creating scalable tech solutions that drive operational excellence. Jay, that's got to be one of the best introductions I've ever had the pleasure to read through. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you have lots going on, but I'm excited to have this talk, get your insights. But again, first and foremost, thanks so much for today.
You're welcome, Mark. And again, thank you for the very kind introduction. I should be, saying I'm grateful to be in some of these great companies. I had opportunity to contribute and work and grow. Sure. Really appreciate you having me in your show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a really incredible background. And looking back at your experience, that's kind of where I wanted to jump into things a little bit, because doing my research for this episode, just reading all the accomplishments you have in the companies, especially the time period you were at those companies, I find really interesting. Looking at it now and looking at the topic, obviously today, looking at AI and transforming automotive retail as our topic, how are you seeing retailers in the automotive space use AI to enhance customer experience and streamline that buying process? How are you seeing that today versus how you've seen it in the past?
Yeah, it's a very important question. And also, as you know very well, there is significant amount of discussions in every way. It could be, simple discussions to real products to high anxiety situation where people are like, oh my God, AI is going to Mars, but we don't have anything in our day-to-day business. So it's a full spectrum. So the way I've seen and I feel, while we are deeply involved, I'm not an AI expert, but we are deeply involved and we do develop AI solutions. The way I see it is constantly embedding AI into customer experience. I think you nailed it well. Even in your question, you said how is AI used in automotive retail experience? I think that's the key thing, because one thing which I've seen consistently happening in technology over a period of time is people have an AI use case and they try to fit into a customer. It has to be the reverse. So the idea is, what is your customer's workflow of what do they normally do to buy a car or to service the car, right? As you know, the two or three, I would say, if you step back, three key customer workflows in an automotive retail ecosystem is one, shopping, which can go all the way to car buying experience. Number two, which is after sales, which is after you buy a car, everything, the experience with the car, as well as if you have a service need, how do you take care of that? Mm-hmm. And then the third is engagement with your brand. Whatever brand vehicle you're driving, you need to have an engagement if you want to buy an accessory or you want to buy something for your family. So all of those. So the idea, fundamentally, what we are working on, what I feel everyone should be working on is, how do you make it simple and easy and the best experience for the consumers to go through these three key experiences when they buy a car, or when they use a car, or when they engage with a brand. I think I'm just keeping that at a high level, but please let me know how we can go. I would be happy to go deeper into each of these workflows and how we are doing it versus also what's happening in the market.
Yeah, I think how you're doing it, I'm definitely interested in it. And before I get there, though, I want to ask, throughout your career, you've been in this industry, in this game a long time. You've seen things develop from the ground up, and notably at Tesla, obviously, to where it kind of really started to scale up. A lot of innovation, a lot of technology going into the solutions. If we look at where we're at now, and to your point of the customer coming first and kind of developing backwards, do you see that happening, or do you see more commonly we're overcomplicating the use of technology and AI into some of these product solutions in the retail space?
I think it's a great question. It is more commonly the other way. People, it's not consciously people do it, but kind of unconsciously they are more, trying to solve a day-to-day smaller problem, but missing the bigger picture. So they overcomplicate adding. So what happened in the automotive industry, which we are excited to solve, and we are solving it, is over decades, it has been massive fragmentation. Some of the core systems in the automotive space have not evolved, be it at the manufacturer or be it at the retailer or the dealer. It's not evolved. They're very antiquated, but there are many solutions, point solutions they keep adding. But to your point, people keep adding on top of just stacking up without asking a question, or without going back to the drawing board and saying like, okay, what is a consumer? What is our consumer going through? What did they do it 10 years ago? What are they doing today? And for example, each person, there is a slight variation, depends on where they are, and there are many factors to it. Like, for example, the way I shop versus the way my teenage son shops would be very different. So we want to make sure technology understands that, and it personalizes and gives what the consumer is really looking for. To answer your question, summarize it. Yes, general typical nature is people overcomplicate it, but I feel it's a better trend now, moving towards there is a willingness, and there are a few companies and there are a few people, even consumers, are going back to the drawing board. There is a third factor which is very important to it. Consumers demand many of these things, and companies need to pay attention to it, because they will gravitate to, if you don't deliver what they're looking for, I'm talking about the consumers, they will gravitate to wherever they get the solution. And that's happening in the automotive industry as well. That's exactly why we are delivering a platform where pretty much most of the businesses can come on board and give what consumers are looking for. And I'll be happy to go deeper on, in our research, what did we find, what consumers are looking for.
Before, I do want to hear that, because I think that's going to be super interesting, and just from a personal point of view as well, I'd like to know that as well. But
sure.
Along that timeline, are there specific moments and shifts that you've seen that have been in the right direction when it comes to this thinking?
It is, yes. See, Mark, I'm sure you interview a lot of great guests and different, even people from different industries. Typically, what I've seen, there are trends that happen and they go through kind of a different cycles. The notable big cycle is there is a new trend that come up, and there is definitely all trend go through a hype cycle. You can take, rideshare, subscription services, you could take crypto, you could take any trend, EVs. They all go through cycles. You may see, early days, people will like, oh, no, come on, it's not going anywhere. And then suddenly everyone is like, okay, everything in the world is going to change to that particular one. And then somewhere reality sets in. Okay, you know what, sometimes the trend completely fizzles away. And I'll give you an example. And sometimes the trend really keeps up to the hype and then, keeps going. So one example I could give you is, slightly before COVID happened, I kept hearing a lot about car ownership is going to go away completely. I don't know if you remember that discussion. Yeah, it was happening everywhere. And people did come to me, businesses did come to me and asking, does Techion provide subscription? services. While we do, but the point there is pretty much everyone is saying, no, you know what, moving forward, a few years down the line, looks like no one is going to own any more cars. And that trend definitely had a hype cycle. And then post-COVID, literally just completely died. Yeah. Now everything became normal. Car ownership became, everyone started buying cars, and then margins were going, of course, inventory were low, demand was low, our supply was low, and demand was very high. And then the margins were continuing to go up. Anyway, so that's an example. So to your question, yes, that it is shifting. So sometimes it goes too much where people, hype on a trend and get, too excited about it. And then it settles down to reality. Some companies are level-headed and some people are level-headed to go through that trend and embrace it and keep going in the right direction. Some people either don't embrace the trend or go too far into it, investing a little bit too much. And if it dies away, similar to the example I gave, then they're at risk as a company.
But to your point, these hype moments will continue to happen, especially as technology becomes more and more impressive and more poppy and wow. What's your note then and your message to businesses when this happens? Is it just to hold face and just focus on what's important to you? Is it get in early? What's kind of your message when these hype moments do happen with new technology and new AI solutions?
Another great question. And this there is no silver bullet, but I think something has worked for us consistently and worked for me as well is staying true. First point is definitely focus on your customers, and which we have been doing, and staying level-headed. It's not easy, by the way, because you're going to get peer pressure because social media now opens up to everything, which is overall one way it's a good thing, but it's not for everyone. If someone doesn't have the experience, they may get too anxious, too excited, go in the wrong direction too quickly. Tough to course correct. And you also get pressure from your teams as well, your customers and your teams. They all call you and say, oh, what is your company doing everywhere? Everyone is working on crazy AI solutions, and what are you delivering? So the idea is first two things. So awareness is important, but always keep that level-headed so that the awareness doesn't become anxiety. So awareness and then connecting, staying true to your company goals and what you're delivering to your customers is fundamental. And we don't want to too much sway in one direction or the other, because one thing you would hear from anyone who's associated with Techion, even some of our earliest investors or earliest customers, which is good to hear from, for me always, it's a nice validation, all the tough and hard work we have put in, is we stayed true to whatever we said in the beginning has still been going on in exactly the same direction. There is no, minor course corrections always happen, but there has never been a big deviation from what we set out to do and what we are doing today. So two important factors is staying aware and trying to keep measuring it to say, are we focusing at the right level? So maybe going to the next level, what I would say, since you have a lot of management folks as your audience, is something like budget. You need to make sure that people don't literally, throw pretty massive amount of the budget where you go in negative versus, but at the same time, zero is not an answer as well. Like, okay, let me wait everyone to prove and then I'll go invest in AI is also not the answer. And I've seen both sides.
Yep.
And more times I see people just overinvest and realize it's not the value it is getting. So it has to be at the right level. So we have a very clear allocation, which we move it a little bit up or down. Like, so we're going to allocate, say, 10% of our investment in AI. I'm just saying it's not exactly 10%, but we throttle it up or down a little bit based on the results we are seeing. The more we see, then we invest a little bit more. So I think that's a good measure, and we have been seeing that consistently happening.
Okay.
And there are times where, as a leader, I have to keep measuring the team up or down. There are times I feel they're not making enough progress in AI. I will really lit up a fire and say, guys, we need to go, and I'm staying very close to it. There are times I would say, don't get anxious. We don't have to solve, boil the ocean. We don't have to solve 1,000 problems. Let's solve these two problems for our customers and we'd be good. And that has worked well.
And I think too, like having a team that knows the culture of the company is innovative and is investing in the future, I think eases a lot of those concerns and keeps a lot of those people from being afraid that they're going to be left behind. Because I think that's one of the biggest fears companies have today with how fast everything's evolving,
Yeah.
is to be left behind, is to join the game too late. And you mentioned not, saying no to a lot of these things can't be an answer, saying all in can't be an answer, but it's having that awareness to feel what is best for your customers or for your product at that time and being aware of it. I think that's fundamentally, as a cultural approach, I think super important, right?
Well said. Actually, I wouldn't have summarized it this well.
Awesome. You alluded to it, and I want to know some of these research statistics or maybe fun facts that you found from the research you've done around this topic. Do you have any that you could share that are top of mind?
Yeah. I'll relate this to a little bit instead of going too deep into kind of numbers.
Yeah.
Relate to the first point I mentioned, right? So a hype cycle, if you remember, there are times where people, even today, there are people who talk about it, but based on our research, what we found out was, I'll tell you what the hype is. The hype is, it happened, and even now it's happening a little bit, but a few years ago, especially during COVID, people did say pretty much everything is going to go online, especially in the automotive retail. That people did talk about 100% of car buying is going to go online. Unfortunately, when you look at the data, yes, it's trending up. Shopping is trending up. The shopping and buying is two different things. And you have to take it end to end. That's not the case. So if you see pretty much still big percentage, of car buying, more than 90% happens, on site. It's not online.
Sure.
So now, when we did the research, what's happening is, yes, there is a trend where more people are doing shopping and doing their research online. And reality is, what exactly consumers are looking for is people misinterpret some of these things. First, let me talk about that, and then I'll talk about what consumers are truly looking for. The misinterpretation is people go overdo some of these. They see small portion of the data and they say, oh, you know what, everything is going to go online. And there are times in automotive, in the US itself, my team did a research, there were 60 plus, 62 or 63 digital retailing tools. Many went out of business.
Yeah, of course.
Because they didn't cover the end-to-end, because there was a hype and everyone was trying to build and deliver a tool. Dealers and OEMs tried to adopt those tools, and then it didn't work to most of the time. And today, there's not even a single tool that is truly working out of those, 60 plus. So that proves what is happening is, it is not, when you do online car buying, it's not a pretty website to shop. That's part of it, but it's not the whole thing, because in a car buying, as you know, there's so many things attached to it. You need to do a true research of end-to-end of everything about the vehicle. You need to make sure that you provide consumers with options for anything, financing, leasing, the type of purchase they're trying to do. You need to connect to your lenders or banks and whatever you need to do. And then there is credit checks. And if they are doing a trade-in of a vehicle, there are so many things attached to it. You need to bring the whole experience of a consumer together. What we really found out was, based on many factors, the way they shop vary. Another example I want to give is, Apple is a good example, where you can buy every single Apple product online from their website. But if you see, there is still a line in Apple stores, and Apple still opens new stores. So my point is, then people go and debate like, oh, you know what, there is not going to be car dealerships anymore. Everyone is going to buy online. Okay, if that is the case, then why is still Apple opening new stores? So we misjudge the consumer what they're looking for. What they're looking for truly, we found in our research, is consumers are looking for complete freedom and choice. They are saying like, okay, leave it to me how I want to do my shopping. the way I shop and the way my daughter shops or my son shops would be very different. So we need to make sure technology, including the digital retailing and including AI, enables and gives them a full free form of whatever way they want to shop. Simple example is I may go into a dealership first, experience the car, do a test drive, potentially do a deal there, or I'll come back to my office and then I'll do my purchase. My son might be doing different. He's teenage. He might do everything online, but still may want to go do the test drive at the end. So the experience and the way people do things would be different. But at the same time, when he wants to do uploading, signing documents, everything from his phone. Yeah. So technology needs to enable personalize, and this is exactly AI can be a huge one, and it is a huge one, where personalizing for a consumer and giving them what they're looking for in the easiest and simplest form. And if you really step back, Mark, you may know this well, it's obvious, but when you say this is when we realize the reason all machines, I'm generalizing a lot, of course computers is a big portion of it, came into existence, we invented those because what? To simplify our life, isn't it? If you just distill down to the fundamentals, that's exactly what we are trying to do.
Every innovation.
Exactly. Making our life simpler and easier. That's how it should be. Human life simpler and easier. So if you go back to the concept, apply AI to make it simpler, make it easier for our consumers and give them the best experience. That's exactly the focus for us and what we are trying to do in automotive.
That's such a core of this discussion in particular, but I think for many discussions and many projects and campaigns going on, we have to remember that core, that tech and AI is there to simplify our journey through whatever that process is. I think people get lost in the fun of it, which isn't to say a lot of innovation doesn't happen in that fun, but at the end of the day, you have to come back to that core of making things simpler. My head is spinning with so many different directions of conversations I want to take this. This is incredible. There may have to be a further conversation on this as well, but something that comes to mind first and foremost, and I'd love your input on it, given the global reach of the companies you've worked with, different geographics. Do you see a difference that has a large enough impact that would impact how technology is brought into that company? And I'll give you an example. You just gave the example of purchasing a car in the States and maybe how the process goes. And you mentioned the demographics different. So maybe you would go look at a car, your son would do everything online first. I grew up in North America. I grew up in Vancouver. And in the time I grew up, maybe this was just because it was the time past. It was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You would always go to the dealer first. But at the dealer, you'd have the traditional salesman, and it would be maybe more of a forced conversation, or it would always be you'd have to trust what the dealer's saying to you, and you'd have to trust what the salesman's saying to you, and get in the car and do a test drive, and so on and so forth. In Europe, it's a totally different experience when you go to a dealership or you go to any aftermarket retailer, even if it's parts or tires or wheels or everything. No one approaches you. It's very much they know you're coming in educated. When I recently purchased my recent car, I went to the dealer, was 3 hours away, but I knew the car I wanted. I just wanted to take it for a drive to make sure everything checked off in real life. But I had done everything. I knew what I wanted. And when I walked on the lot, I had to go find a dealer salesperson to just go, hey, can I get the keys for this car? I want to buy it. Do you see that geographic difference being played out by how different countries and different parts of the world are adopting technology, or is it just a geographical difference?
It is, I think it's both. I think it's mixed in both. It starts with the geographical difference of how they've been, conducting business. And I think it's a great example. I think since you've lived, both in North America as well as you're living in Europe now, we have a very similar experience in service as well. So if you see in the US, a lot of people, walk-in service is very common. And people don't keep up appointments. It's a big problem for dealers. It's a business as well, right? But in Europe, I've seen, and you may know this well, appointments are kept much more. And then the systems and technologies also cater to it because we deliver features. In Europe, the dealer they start preparing even couple of days before the customer comes in. They prepare all the parts necessary. Everything needs to be ready for the service. All of those are done very, very diligently. So the software needs to, deliver all those necessary features for them to prepare and keep truly ready and make it efficient when the customer comes in. And I think to answer your question, yes, there is a behavioral difference on how, based on the region, how people do conduct business and how customers are used to going through it. And based on that, there is a technological difference because the companies have to deliver software. But what we are trying to do is bridging through the platform, because this is where, again, going back to the fundamentals, technology is there to make things better for us. So we are doing cross-pollination in our platform. So if we find a best feature in Europe that will help US, we bring it here. And not so surprisingly, but initially, people did think, and no, there will be resistance. Why would people want to use the feature that's being used in Europe here, and vice versa as well? There are some great features that,
absolutely,
not so surprisingly, they get excited. In fact, when we show some of these features to our dealers, saying that, hey, would you be willing as an option, turn it on if you want to truly do proper planning? They get really excited. They're, wow, this is cool. No one has showed this before in the whole shop planning, shopping. There are experience. So there is opportunities. This is where technology can help to bring the best to, level. I don't know if that's the right word, level the playing field, right? With technology, best of both. So you could get best of what is working well for consumers and what is working well for business quicker.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things with where we are in technology, especially when we look at the AI side and how it's impacting dealers' operations, manufacturing, service. It is creating a much more level playing field where we're seeing a lot of smaller companies, a lot of underdog companies play at that top level because they're utilizing technology in maybe a more aggressive way or a way that they're more prepared to play with it. And it's creating that level playing field, but it also forces those top companies to be very aware and kind of not get left behind. And we're seeing that even in I was talking to a gentleman from Hankook, and he was saying there are some big tire names that are going to disappear in the next decade because they didn't take action early enough. And we're seeing a lot of these younger companies step up. So I think that's a really interesting way that it's leveling the playing field. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I can add a comment on that because
please.
we work with all sizes of companies, right? We are young and growing, but we're at a reasonable size already, and we'll grow much, much bigger. We're still agile and fast and continue to innovate. What we have seen is, I'm sure you would have seen something similar. It's a mix. There are companies, like you said, there is potentially would go out of business because they did not take. It's not about they did not take action. You're absolutely right, but they didn't take the risk. There is everything you do in innovation. There is an amount of risk.
Absolutely.
And in the macro view, if you think about risk reward is always proportional. That doesn't mean you have to go take crazy risk to get reward, but it always has to be a calculated risk. If you see some of the people who solved some of the biggest problems and biggest challenges because they took the biggest risk are getting the biggest reward. So everyone from the richest people in the world, you will see they've taken some bigger, huge, massive problems to solve. Yeah. So what is happening, I see in big companies many times, it's again, don't want to generalize anything, but it commonly happens is they're very risk averse. I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but they're too much of risk averse. So they don't take initiatives. Sometimes they don't even partner with the right companies who are innovating. There's always opportunity to collaborate. That's not common, but there are some great companies who do take that step and do it. The second is the chain of command is also too many. So not a single person takes the risk. Unless it comes top down, people is like, okay, why would I put my job on the line? Okay, this is great, technology. I love it. It will make a big difference to my business, but you know what? If I take the risk and things go wrong, I'd get fired. So I don't want to take that risk. So that is something a leadership team needs to make conscious decision. A board needs to make a conscious decision to nudge and say, okay, you know what? It is fine. We got your back. at least make sure that you're transparent with what risk you're taking. So, I'm saying I talked about, allocating capital or resources or whatever it is. Allocate 5% or allocate 10%, whatever that is, but make sure that there is an allocation for innovation.
Yeah, I think you have to have it and manage that risk reward, like you said. And if there is a risk, maybe there's a contingency if it doesn't maybe fall through in the way you hoped, but it can still be useful in another
Yeah,
capacity. So strategizing that risk reward as well, I think in today's game is super important because you can't sit on the sidelines. It doesn't matter how big your name is, how many people you have, how big your market share is today. You can't sit on the sidelines. I think that's super
exactly.
clear, and
Yeah.
you highlighted that well.
Yeah.
I want to touch on obviously your tenure at Tesla. You had scaled. You're part of the scale up very fast, so you saw operations improve massively when it comes to efficiencies, especially on that technology, taking risks. Speaking of taking risks, really pushing the boundaries and helping that operational efficiency jump up with your time there at Tesla. Since you've moved over to Techion, how have you leveraged technology? You're kind of starting from scratch at that point, and you're kind of wanting to build that up as fast as possible. How are you using what you've learned from a technology and an integration and an AI point of view to build up what you currently have at Techion?
Yeah, great question. Definitely lots of learnings. It's more
Yeah.
about fundamentals. I think, Elon and of course Tesla did it extremely well, going back to the fundamentals of focusing on your customer. What is best for the customer? So what that means is it's not as simple as going and doing, great user interface for customers. Yes, that's
Yeah.
part of it, but it's not the whole of it. Going back to the drawing board and, taking it from the fundamental, from the foundation, I felt is very important, because not many times you get to redo things. And there
Right.
is a massive advantage in that, because I saw this very clearly in automotive, because I came out from high tech world. I used to, as you introduced earlier, I used to work at Oracle, then VMware, all technology companies. I didn't know much other than being a consumer. I didn't know much about automotive.
Mhm.
What that gave me is a very clear view of all the problems that have been stacked up for decades in automotive
Interesting. Okay.
workflow. And that fragmentation was so visible to me, but not many people in the industry. They do realize, it's not that they don't, but they didn't have a very clear view, and they also didn't know what to do about it. The
Mhm.
fragmentation was literally dragging them down. It's just,
Really?
software after software after software after software they add.
Mhm.
But in the process, unknowingly they compromise customer experience. The intention is always to give the best customer experience, but they
Yeah.
just can't do it. So at Techion, one thing we did was, from the beginning, we had to go back to the drawing board. We had a clean slate to draw what the consumer experience looks like, and how do we take it through in one technology platform, and bring the key players in the ecosystem together so that they can deliver the best consumer experience. The key stakeholders are, of course, the big brands, the OEMs, manufacturers, and then their retailers, who are dealers. Like I said, more than 90% of the cars are being delivered by dealers. So we want to make sure that's an important part of the equation. And then you bring automotive as a big ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like I talked about, right? Everything from other suppliers like accessory providers to insurance providers for consumers. There are so many things, lenders and banks who provide financing for them. You bring all of them together in another cloud. So we delivered Automotive Retail Cloud, which is completely transforming the retailers to the cloud, latest and greatest with AI. And then Enterprise Cloud for all the manufacturers to get their e-commerce in the best place from a technology perspective. And then Partner Cloud, it's an open API marketplace where you bring all the ecosystem players so that everyone can connect seamlessly and securely. But end goal is to deliver the best experience that the consumer is looking for. So going back to the fundamentals and building it in the right way is one thing I felt is the right thing, which
Yeah.
Tesla did right in its own way, from building the car and what they were delivering.
Sure.
But from a software and technology platform perspective, we are delivering to the automotive industry ecosystem. So anyone can use it come on board to our platform to deliver the experience that they're looking for the consumer. So
Yeah, it's
that's
really interesting to get that start over. You're right. I think we don't often get that chance. And for you, having come from a different industry into the automotive, but looking at it from the industry you kind of came into it from is an interesting way to approach it. And probably, I mean, obviously had an immediate effect on how things kind of scaled up. Those early days, like when you first came in, like obviously you're not going to remember the first days, weeks, and months, but that first time period of your time at Tesla, if they had known what kind of how you brought Techion up now, and if they had known all those lessons, would it be a different brand, a different company today?
It well, not hugely. To some extent, yes, because for me, if you see anything we build, there's a difference between building technology to one company and building to the entire industry. But at the same time, you need to be very careful you don't overcomplicate it, for right. And there was very specific, or there has been, and that's how it's been, goal what Tesla wanted to deliver to its consumers. I think they've been true to it, and I was very glad to be part of that, to build their platform, right, their technology platforms to deliver what Tesla needed to deliver to its consumers. And it's gratifying to see how it is scaling and growing well. Very, very happy about it. But coming back to the entire industry, there is a problem that existed for decades, several decades. So this is a huge opportunity to transform that, and that's exactly what we are doing, and we're quite excited about it.
Yeah, and that brings me to that kind of the next and last major point I wanted to address with you is obviously looking forward, looking to the future. Obviously, you have tons of experience on the tech, on the automotive, working for one of the biggest names in automotive, of course. Now building up the empire that you're building with Techion, which is an incredible platform. If people have the time to look into it, I'll definitely put links below. It is quite incredible looking at how young the company is, what we've already achieved. But looking to the future, how do you see AI? What is the role you see AI playing in the future development when we look at the retail side of automotive, whether it's vehicles, aftermarket? What is the role AI will play in the next decade?
Yeah. It's evolving very fast. Of course, for any big technology, the last mile is still the issue. For businesses, that last mile becomes even more important. And I have an example where a personal friend who was trying to look up something in generative AI, ChatGPT. It was a very old literature for his daughter's homework, and AI gave a very convincing verse from that particular literature, right? And he was almost there to give it to his daughter for the school homework, but he did a cross research and he found out that verse never existed in that literature at all.
I knew it.
Yeah. So, hallucination, right? I'm sure you know about this all. About. What I'm talking about is there are scenarios where it's still learning, it's still young, and I know it's evolving. But where you can't make mistakes, there are many places in business you can make mistakes. Of course, in healthcare, there's no way you can make mistakes because you're literally playing with people's lives.
Sure.
And then even when in automotive, there is autonomous driving, so you have to be very, very careful. So that's why it's taking so much time to evolve.
Yeah.
So what we are focusing, I'll tell you, is making life simpler. To going back to that fundamental concept is how do you make consumers' decision-making process the simplest? So, for example, you had to do probably 8 hours of research or whatever it is. I did several years ago when I was trying to buy a car. I did at least 8 hours of research because I love the process as well. We've seen it's like different models. How can AI make those things? As you know, well, AI is good in summarization, but if you could make it more context-based, where you could literally ask very specific question to AI, which is kind of already, getting there, and make your shopping decision much simpler, faster, easier. And reversely, on the dealer side and the OEM side, how can you cater to a customer almost instantly, because this is a very competitive world. And today what's happening is manually you go do a Google search and submit a request to someone, then suddenly you get like, 20 calls from 10 different people constantly calling you like, hey, you're looking for this car. Like, you like, so there are times where customers get annoyed, and sometimes whoever calls first may get the deal, right? And then price is a factor to it. What we are trying to do, or we are working and we delivered a few features, is making that entire process simple and seamless. So you as a consumer making your process simple and easy, and you get accurate information on what you're looking for. You can ask question to the AI to get it. On the reverse, on the dealer side, the moment you reach out to them, AI engine can respond to you with context. What vehicle, make, model, trim, and its specifications you're looking for. AI can understand based on your questions what you might be has a higher probability of you buying, and giving you an answer, and then keeping the humans, the staff in the dealerships involved, because there is always a chance as a consumer you would say, you know what, I want to talk to someone first. I got my details, but I want to now move forward to the next step. I want to talk to someone. So that connecting, being fast, what AI does really well, and of course accuracy is important. That's where businesses need to work on. Yeah. Accurately getting faster, but same time seamlessly bringing the human factor into it is exactly what we are working towards. So constantly deliver, so speed up things faster for shopping for consumers. Yeah. Higher trust so that they get the best information. And then from the business side, the dealer and OEM, you can respond to the consumer fastest with the highest level of context, what they're looking for, and work towards closing the sale or closing the deal for the consumer in the experience that they're looking for.
Yeah, simplifying that whole customer journey using the benefits of AI from both, like they mentioned, both the retailer side and the customer side. I think two very different elements where everyone needs to improve a little bit, and kind of AI as that room of interns there to help with all that work, yeah, putting it all together. So I think that's really nice.
Exactly. And one information, I'm just holding a few things back because in end of January, there is a big automotive conference. I don't know if you're familiar, called as NADA. So we'll be announcing some AI product features in that. So I'm not sharing details about that just for all of those reasons. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
As soon as we launch it, we'd be happy to share details what we launched.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have to pick you back up on that. And I know I don't want to pick too much because I know there's a lot of important stuff happening, and maybe that hinders the next question, but can you give a little bit of a taste of what you're most excited about seeing when we look at this tech evolution, this AI, this retail space? You personally, what are you excited to be seeing?
Yeah, I there's one area I feel, again, this is something we need to, you're right, I think it's kind of puts me in a tough spot to what we are launching. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, sure.
Unfortunately, I'll probably not be able to go into too much details because I'll be kind of forced to talk about what
someone's hand will be going up pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah, let's meet next time, whatever timeline you think. Maybe
that's a great teaser for the next one. Absolutely.
I'll share more.
No, but I really
product demo video on how it works.
We'll definitely make it happen, and I think that's something I'm definitely going to look forward to immediately in the new year. So, listen, I appreciate the conversation today. I appreciate your time, these fantastic insights. I know we went a little bit off script, but just the insights you gave me were fantastic, and I had to dive more into a lot of that. So, listen, thank you so much for today. I've really, really appreciated the talk. Love the work that you and your team are doing. I think it lends to the career you've had, and will certainly continue to help the whole of the automotive industry progress. And I truly believe it's all of the aftermarket providers, the tech providers, the consulting services, everyone moving up the mountain together is all going to move us in a lot faster way, especially when we look at how complicated AI and tech is becoming and how quickly it's adopting. So again, kudos to you and your team. But again, first and foremost, thank you so much for your time today and the incredible insights, Jay.
You're most welcome, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity. Really had a fun conversation. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for everyone watching and listening, thank you very much for being part of this show. It's been another fantastic of the Auto Tech Show. It's been another fantastic episode. It's been really great talking to Jay. A big thank you to him and his team for all the work they're doing and for being part of the show today. If you have questions or comments about what you heard today, or you want to learn a little bit more about what Techion is doing, head down to the comment section in the notes and you'll have a few links and resources there. Definitely check them out. Reach out to me if you have any questions or comments about this episode in specific that you want to get maybe some more details on. I'll be happy to reach back out and have that conversation. So with that, we'll bring this episode to a close. Thank you all so very much for being with me today. Hope you have a fantastic day wherever in the world you may be, and I'll see you on another episode very soon. Bye.